All right, people, thank you for coming out tonight. I apologize for starting a few minutes late, but we're having an executive session, which I'll announce in a few minutes. So I'd like to call this meeting to order, and if everybody could please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. The public is hereby advised of the audio and video recording of this meeting for the purposes of rebroadcasting. As I mentioned before, we had an executive session. There was an executive session of the board held at the high school on July 25th for the discussion of personnel matter regarding an administrative employee. There was an executive session of the Finance Committee held at the Farina Building on August 9th, 2017 for the purpose of discussing matters of the litigation with SWD 101 LLC and WNR 38 LLC and Board of Assessment Appeals of Montgomery County. Then there was an executive session of the board held prior to this meeting on August 15th for the purpose of providing an update on contract negotiations with the three labor groups and for discussion of personnel matters regarding an administrative employee and confidential employee. Thank you. By way of attendance, we are missing Mr. Ross, Mr. Phillips, and Mr. Winters tonight. Now I'll turn it over to Dr. Zerby for recognition of guests and scheduled speakers.
Thank you, Mr. President. This evening we have two speakers. We have Summer Facilities Projects Update by Mr. Fretz, and then we have the Transportation Update by MCIU. Mr. Fretz, I know you're on first, but if you wouldn't mind allowing our guests from the IU to go first, we'd appreciate that, and then we'll bring you on.
You ready? I feel bad. We always bump him. Just want to say there's been a lot of hard work and a lot of hours being put in by First Student, and my hat's off to them because they're doing a bang-up job. On July 28th, the call center was open. We're hearing everyone's concerns. We're returning phone calls, logging the concerns, and they're going to be marked for review by First Student and the school district. August 10th, the routes were posted for the drivers to review, so they've been posted. They will be posted for their 5 days that is in the contract. On August 16th, which is tomorrow, we're having the First Student kickoff meeting with the bus drivers, and we'll be here. And then on the 17th is the bid day, where the bus drivers will bid on the runs according to seniority. The weeks between that and the start of the school, we'll be doing the dry runs, making any minor adjustments. And on the August 18th, which I guess is Friday, I can't believe how fast the summer's gone, the bus stop cards will be sent to the mailing house, and hopefully the families should anticipate receiving them by the end of next week. So we're on track. Everything looks good. Questions at this time?
I have a question. So in terms of the call center, how many have they been getting? Quite a few calls in response to the...
Today we were over 200.
Okay.
In the log. Is that right? Yeah, I think it was over 200 was when I looked this afternoon.
Okay.
And do you have any statistics on your return call time? You know, is it taking a day? Is it taking 2 days? Is it taking a matter of hours as far as getting back to the people who have returned the calls? I'm assuming we've got a log.
Yeah, so we do log them all, and I'll address this question. So when we sent the mailing out, it was for the bus stops. Most of the concerns were relative to cul-de-sacs and some other issues that we knew about. However, we did communicate to families, if adjustments were indeed going to be made, it would be reflective on the upcoming mailing that we're going to do. So, that was stated and known by, families, and we reiterated that on calls that we received, that if adjustments were to be made, it would be reflective, moving forward.
So go back to my question. What's our call return time on average?
Call return relative to getting back to people, as I mentioned before, people were calling to just indicate concern regarding their bus stop, and if there was sufficient information, we didn't need to call them back, because as we communicated to them, we would update their bus card, if so, moving forward. Those that did need a call back, whether it was an address verification, wrong building, or what have you, we typically did it within 2 business days.
Within 2 business days?
Correct.
Did you have
But
a...
if someone did not physically answer the phone and a voicemail was left, we did return the phone call to say, we did hear your concern, it has been logged. So they spoke to a person one way or another.
Okay, my concern, and we seem to get beat up the last couple of years on the timeliness of the response, or no response at all. So I just want to make sure we've got some targets to make sure we're getting back to the people within a reasonable amount of time. That's all. I mean,
Yeah, so
I've
let
been
me-
hearing a lot of positive from the people. Donna's been hearing a lot of thank you. This has been great. I can't believe how quick the phone calls returned. So I don't know past history, but I think that
Okay.
it seems like we're doing a good job. Of course, you don't hear it.
You never hear when you
Right,
do a good
The
job.
ones that aren't happy until after the fact, but yes.
So I'll address some of the supports we put in place this year to prevent things that happened in the past. We do have the call center fully staffed. It'll be staffed by the MCIU, as well as a casual on call that we already have scheduled, from 8 to 4. We have a logging system where we did not have that in the first part of the experience we had last summer. So we have a process whereby calls are evaluated and people set and assigned to return calls if need be. So we have all these things built in where we didn't have that in previous years.
Can you,
What are the, I'm sorry, Mike, I
Sorry,
didn't see
no,
you
go
turn your...
ahead. Just in terms of the 200 calls, can you put that into comparison with, what we've seen in prior years?
I can't. I don't know if anyone else can.
Yeah, again, most of the calls, they were not ones that we didn't anticipate. They were ones that we did anticipate from the changes we made from the Transportation Committee relative to, entering cul-de-sacs and, adhering to, the hazardous roadways and other things that we made bus stop changes about. Some of the calls were reflective of buildings not being accurate from so much data going back and forth from Power School and Bus, which we resolved as well. So relative to last year, I feel very good about where we are in regards to the volume of calls and also the type of calls we were receiving, because again, last year it was more along the lines of calls my son or daughter did not get picked up or they were late and all of that other type of stuff. These were more proactive calls and maybe calls just getting clarification, why did my stop now move from a house stop now to a corner, and all of that was addressed and handled at that point in time. So
Okay. Just from a personal level, I was one of those calls. It was a situation of 2 children, 2 different bus stops. Do we see a lot of that? Have we identified how that process happened?
yeah, so we saw how that process happened, and then we took actions to correct it, whereby we actually ran various queries to compare families and siblings to make sure that they were on similar buses, and that just re-looking at the routes to make sure that we didn't have multiple buses traversing when not needed, similar paths and stuff like that. So we did, as we had calls come in that we thought this doesn't look right, we then investigated and made corrections, as you'll see in your card next week.
Okay, that's exactly what I wanted to hear, that a one-time call can lead to an entire process review, and it sounds like that is what's happening, so that's good to hear. The only other question I had was in terms of the transportation, bus stop that we got. It had a district number on there to call, and when you call, it kind of rings and then sends you to first student, and then the first student person then bumped you back to someone here at Bethacton. You could tell that there was a bounce back there. So was the wrong number listed there, or was there someone who was maybe just a simple thing like vacation or just not there? It seemed like there was a little bit of bouncing back and forth.
Sure, that was definitely the right number. So the way it works is the number is sent to a hunt group where it rings multiple phones. So any available hand is trained to answer that call, then address and log that call. So depending on who was there at the time, they answered it, and they might have tried to get it back to one of our individuals that were tasked at the time. We were not fully staffed as a call center. When we did our original mailing, we didn't think we needed to be based on the low anticipation of calls that we expected to have. So what you just described is accurate in how it works. But as families call moving forward next week, it'll ring a central number will be dialed, it will ring multiple phones, and then we'll have multiple people there to address calls directly at that time, so you're not transferred around.
Okay, thank you so much.
Well, as one of the people that called in, the person who answered the phone was from First Student, and she said exactly everything that the two of you said so far. So that person seemed to handle it very well and was very well trained in what she did. So,
Any other questions? If not, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a great evening.
Have a smooth start.
And before we end the conversation on transportation, I do want to let the board know that while Dr. Sosnovic has been involved with the IU, probably a major, definitely a major player in this whole effort here this summer was Amy Huffman and her team. And Amy, I don't know if you could just take a minute, and I know you're here with a few of your team members. Just go ahead and stand. You deserve to stand. I know you've been putting in a lot of time and work. If you just want to introduce some of your team, that'd be great.
I'm Amy Huffman, location manager for First Student. This is Harry Williams. He's been routing assistant, routing coordinator. And this is Karen Mussup. She is safety manager in a different location, but she's been a huge part in the routing process this year with us. She's helping us before she goes back down to Marion.
Thank you.
So thank you all very much.
Thank you.
We appreciate your effort and your time in helping this. And I just must say, like in any given year, there won't be a start of school. There'll be an issue one way or another. I mean, it's not. I'm not going to say that we're going to have a perfect year, but I can tell you that knowing Amy and her team and the effort they've put forward, and the IU and other members of the administration and the folks from Boss as well, we're in a much better position and more confident in our rollout. And I just want to thank everybody for their. And I know you had a lot of other drivers involved that aren't here that participated. I think you might have participated. No? Oh, okay. But it's a critical piece, and I think we're working well together and working all together in the right direction. So again, thank you. Next on the list for speakers is Summer Facilities Projects Update. Mr. Fretz, I think members of the board, there might be a handout in front of you.
Good evening, everybody. Tonight I want to point your attention to item number 1 on the summer work progress report. You'll see where we have Fidavia site and RFP board update. Right now we're on the site project where we had finished out phase 1, and we have a punch list that's ongoing there. Some items that have to do with growing season and that type of thing. However, this summer was tremendous weather with the amount of rain we got. We're actually entering the phase 2 with that, and we're getting ready for that. We have met with Worcester Township, and we're scheduling a walkthrough and surveying where the landscaping trees are going to be planted at, and then we're going to walk it again and make sure everybody's in concert with that. Moving to the summer priority work, as we've gone over a few different times. 1.0, the hardware core replacement, is on track. We have the logic, the software, the security key boxes for perimeter all scheduled. That stuff should be coming in, and we'll be working on that yet. Moving forward. Miscellaneous architectural projects, there's majority of the items have been completed. AEM carried out an initial review of the auditorium. We had met and walked the building again, looked at the egress there, waiting for them to get back at this point. You'll see the expansion joint project is there right now. I want to give you an update on that. We placed that on hold due to the costs of that project turned to the point that it would have been probably a 3-quote process minimum, and we had some issues with getting contractors at this time that would be able to be competent in that work, and also procuring the lead time that we would have had in getting those expansions. So I think it was better off at this point to wait and do them maybe at another time. Roof maintenance, that's ongoing. We have been taking care of the minor roof leaks, but moving to where it said roof maintenance, we've been taking care of leaks with the storms and keeping track of those and getting contractors in to repair them. Moving forward with the roofing consultant, we expect something back in September from them, identifying, as we had spoke before, the items with that and prioritization of all the roofs of the various buildings and getting to a point where we know what we want to attack. 5.0, the miscellaneous MEP projects, we're working with Consolidated. Actually, I have a meeting next week scheduled with them to review some work at Arcola and at the high school to talk about that work. There's right now we're in a permit phase with shop lights at the high school. We had talked about having some battery backup lights in there. We also have completed that, as you'd see later on, at the Arcola. The administrative selected project 7.0, that continues on all items. The painting at Skyview is complete. The separation wall that we had in 246, 248 at Arcola is right now getting spackled and finished. We passed a rough-in inspection and a drywall inspection and a framing inspection, electrical inspection on those. See where it says there's an entrance there at Lobby Guard at Arrowhead that we had to do a little reconfiguring because of the size of the unit, and we're working on that. The things that we need are ordered and expect to have here on time for the start of school. You'll see more detail of this as you move through the summary of all these projects as you go through. You're familiar with that from 1.0 to 7.0 on this. Just, does anybody have any questions about this to get in any details on any more of that work at this point? Scott?
I got a couple. So on the expansion joints, is that going to cause any issues delaying that?
No. I mean, I think that this has been something we've been working on. I mean, I think it's been here, so the issues that are there are still the same conditions. So it's a matter of, I don't really want to disrupt it during the school year. It would be something that, if we so chose, we could maybe do it over a holiday or something like that, or let it go until next summer.
Okay, so no issues. Under the miscellaneous architectural, I know we talked about the window seals and how that was a budget buster.
Yes.
From the quote that we had gotten from the Gordon Group. And then I think there was some discussion, Mark, around do we do some investigative work to make sure that we've got the right scope for what's there. Did we do any further investigative work at the school to make sure that we've got, take one out, really kind of time study it so that we can, have a pretty firm grasp on both the fix and the time cost allocation, because it's a big cost of labor mostly.
Absolutely. So it really comes down to weighing a couple demands there with that. You're looking at the outside. What could we do? What could I do right now and say, Mark, get those things tight? There's probably something I could do that would help the situation. But to move on to looking at the whole and pulling out the windows and everything and talking with AEM and Fidavia, the number that we had quoted so far on that, feel that it's closely approaching the price of replacing all the windows. Now, do I have that firm right now? No. But I think that that's something else to take a look at and see where we would be. But to pull out a window, which we certainly could do, take out a couple of the different places to take a look at what that condition is. But if we got to go back through and take them all out to say make the repair, that's where you really got to look at what the overall cost would be.
Yeah, I guess I can agree with you there, except for the glass appears to be good and not failing, so
Glass is beautiful.
I don't know why you're talking about the window frames, not the glass
The
within
labor
the
of taking
frames.
out that aluminum frame and being non-destructive in its removal and separating that from the finished wall inside because it's only a caulking joint between the
Yeah.
drywall and the frame, putting that back in place, re-shimming it, re-insulating around that perimeter again, redoing the flashings, and now you're putting that back in and you have a 15-year-old frame.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's what you're kind of weighing out.
Yeah, yeah, okay. We'll have some more discussion, I'm sure, at the property committee on that. And then I just had one other question on the door hardware core replacement. Is that going to be complete before the start of the year? It sounds like we've got pieces and parts that have come in, but not fully installed.
So I don't have a delivery date on the cores. I'm told as of our last meeting that it won't be that long. So as soon as I have that delivery date, the actual function of going through and replacing them, and they will be doing that. And it would be, we're working, remember, out on the perimeters only at this point. So even if it pushed a little, we'll still be good that we'd be able to work around the outside and take care of that stuff.
And you've got a methodology set up for, cataloging keys so that
That's where
it doesn't become a mess.
Absolutely, that's where the details really get, the whole design and how we're going to go move about taking care of those keys and making sure they're safeguarded appropriately. How we're going to take care of that is,
Yeah, and Troy, are you in on that as far as any kind of technology from a key technology systems perspective?
So let me just answer a little bit for Troy.
Uh-oh.
Troy's provided us with a database of staff, and we're breaking that staff down into departments from a standpoint of who that person's frontline supervisor is, and then the secondary person, and we'll go to Dr. Zerby as we go through that to challenge the need of keys, for one. The second thing, as part of this, is a software program. That database that Troy has provided will be able to be imported back into here. So now every cord that's put in on every door will be able to be recorded, and anything associated with that door would be tracked. So the person that would have that key, we will know that in an electronic key record.
Okay.
And Karthik has been involved in that.
Any other questions for Mr. Fritz?
I have a couple. And looking at 7.0, I just see a couple of things that I'm wondering if they're going to be completed before school starts. In particular, the traffic study at the high school, it says review started. Are we anticipating making any changes to the flow of traffic on the high school campus before school starts?
I'm not anticipating any changes before.
The answer is no.
Okay.
Thank you.
I already reviewed that. The challenge is we really need to find the best mechanism for traffic flow, and it's contingent upon the flow of traffic out on Germantown Pike and roads around the campus. So we're not in a position at this point to make any changes, and this will likely go into a little bit of September to see how the traffic flows and count cars to get a better perspective rather than just looking at, an empty design.
Okay. Sorry, so it's a not yet thing, but not this year thing. It's more of a, we're going to work on this once we actually have the situation in front of us.
I don't see it
to look
happening
at.
this school year.
Okay. And the other question would be the lobby guard install at Arrowhead. How is that progressing?
It's progressing. Right now, I have an order in for some storefront material that would be put in the vestibule area. So we didn't want to block egress there. It's tight going out of that building. So we figured a way around doing that and being able to mount a area in actually the storefront frame that's there to be able to house the lobby guard. So that's what I'm waiting for right now.
Will that be completed before school starts?
They didn't give me a delivery date on that yet, but as soon as I have it, that will be known. They know of our deadline, that's for sure.
Any other questions?
Just one question. Under 2.0, you list a code review that's currently in process. Could you just give us a little bit of information? Is that code
Yes.
items that were identified in the original AEM report, or?
Yes. That facilities assessment study had recorded that to my recollection. What we were talking about there was where I had noted that, I think it was on page 1, where AEM was out here and reviewed. It's the length of travel between egress points out of a building, and that's what it revolves around. So he's studying that, and that's at the second floor at Arcola.
Thank you.
Just a quick question. You mentioned the rain. I've been dealing with the rain myself. Has there been any issues with any of your projects or any of the buildings because of the extensive amount of rain? Is there anything on hold? Arrowhead still hanging in there with their roof?
Absolutely. We were taking care of it. We were up there looking, and, right now, I think that we're doing well with it. Taking care of, it's nothing unusual for the amount of roofs that we have right now, and we're taking care of anything as it's reported, which we check every time it rains.
I think one benefit of the rain and the excessive rain is that it was a good demonstration of basin number 2 on the high school campus actually working the way it was designed. So it's a positive.
That is a positive. So,
There's no other questions? All right.
Well,
Thank you, Mr. Fretz. We appreciate your time this evening, and thank you again for all the pictures and the details.
yeah. So
Very appreciated.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda are the reports, our monthly reports. I know we don't normally do those in the work session. I know that I have a report here for the board. I have a couple items that I want to bring up to speed. If you don't mind, I can jump in and give those real quick. Again, this is related to transportation. The transportation schedule information will be mailed to families next week. In addition, the families will again be able to access the transportation information via a secure online portal. More details on the timeline and how to access the portal will be sent to families later this week via school messenger and posted on the district website. In addition, the board will be provided in advance the routes and summary information for approval at the voting meeting, in advance of the voting meeting scheduled for August 29th. The next item, student schedules. I think it's important that on Monday, that people know that on Monday, August 24th, secondary student schedules and elementary teacher assignment information for the new school year will be available in Power School Parent Portal. Families who have not yet signed up for the portal accounts should do so as soon as possible. Information on how to get access to this information and establish an account can be found on the district website, and just look at the district homepage. Next item I have is immunization information. New school immunization requirements for students in grades K through 12 may cause students to be required to have immunizations and could potentially exclude them from school. So at the end of last school year, we communicated and sent letters to all families with the information on exactly what immunizations and things that their children need to start the next school year. In addition to that, we're sending out additional calls and communications, and also holding with the help of the Detweiler Family Medicine Center, we've established some dates for families to receive the necessary immunization at clinics held here in the district. I believe it'll be held in the high school. That'll be on Friday, August 25th. Additional information will be sent again to affected families via school messenger, email, and a phone call this week. The last item I have is about the music program. And you may recall that last month I removed the advisement regarding the transfer of a music teacher from the high school to Arcola. I did this at that time to gather more information and to meet with the music department chair prior to finalizing a decision in a notice to the board. I did meet with Ms. Basilick, the department chair, and the exchange was important enough for me to now inform the board that in an effort to ensure that we preserve programming for students, that we will hire for the program at Arcola and not transfer the teacher from the high school. And we will also work with Ms. Basilick and others within the music department and the administrative team to address several other outstanding matters to help better prepare the music program in the future. And that ends my report here this evening.
Dave, I have one question. When you said that the class assignments and whatnot were going to be in Power School, is the 24th the correct date on that?
21st, I believe, is the date that I have.
Okay. In our board memo, I thought that you had said that they were going to be available on a different date.
There were elementary, if that's the wrong date, these are going to be sent, it's on the website. I didn't pick the date out, so
Okay.
I can check, but
Okay.
according to my records, I have the 21st.
The 21st
I
is
did
when
the
they would be
21st.
on Power School.
On Power School.
And when will they be mailed?
There are no mailings for the high school.
Right.
K6 was mailed Monday.
Right.
We should receive them by the end of the week.
Okay, that's what I had thought, so I just wanted to make sure that there was clarification. So letters will be in the mail, or in the mail for K through 6. Everything else is not being mailed, but will be in Power School by the 21st?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Yes, for families who perhaps don't have access to the internet, is there any means of assisting them in getting information that they could get through Power School if they had the internet connection, or don't we have that problem at all?
I'm not certain that we don't have that problem. I can tell you that there are mechanisms, and the best method for doing that is to contact their building, and the building secretary can print out and mail the schedules to the families that need those. There's no other questions? That ends my report here for this evening. So then there'll be public comment on board action items on the 29th. We'll approve the board meeting minutes, and then we're on to fiscal items. Mr. Brooker is on vacation, and before you are the list of bills and treasurer's report. Are there any questions on any of those two items?
I just have two questions that maybe Dr. Katona or Dr. Sosnova could answer, because they just came up from Education Committee. That's why I'm asking. In my minutes, which I'll read next meeting, I talk about the Power School support from the intermediate unit that helped us very much, and I noticed there's a bill for $5,000 for that support. I was just wondering, is that a one-time thing? Do we know?
That is a one-time thing that we needed some additional high-level technical support to support the needs of our scheduling at the high school and COLA.
Okay.
But we may necessarily need them in the future as well. So depending on the levels that we need, we have reached out to them.
And the only other thing I noticed, and there's probably a reason, there's a bunch of checks that are for zero. Is that just a type?
They were voided checks.
They were voided checks, okay.
Any other questions on the list of bills or treasurer's report? If not, we'll move on to personnel items. Dr. Sosnova.
Thank you. For the board's consideration next week, we will have 2 resignations professional. We will have 2 resignations classified, along with approval of 2 employment professional. We will have requesting your approval for summer temporary employment, 1 change of status, 1 change of status classified, 2 supplemental contracts, and the list of volunteers.
Are there any questions for Dr. Sosnova?
I would imagine it's not a big deal that they're effective August 28th and we're not officially voting until August 29th. And then my other question is, if we still are hiring more people and they get added to the agenda and then we don't vote until the 29th, and they work for another district, and they don't resign from that district, and then they get held for 60 days. Like, are we running into a time crunch because it's August 15th?
There is always the potential, especially with professional employees, that they can be held, with our contract up to 60 days. So we do have mechanisms in place where we could get a substitute from STS or what have you. We have a number from MESPA standpoint. If it was anyone along the IA route or PCA, we have casuals on calls that we could also leverage. Yes, we are getting close to crunch time. We already anticipate, even since these were printing this afternoon, a couple more updates for your consideration in 2 weeks. But we feel confident that the remaining contract positions will be filled by the start of school as it looks right now.
Thank you.
Any other questions? If not, we'll move on to curriculum and programs. Dr. Katona?
Okay, we have one item. I have one item. We are in need of a few more materials for the Wonders Balanced Literacy, in particular for special education teachers and students, and the amount for the materials is $13,266.51.
And PSSA, yeah.
I also wanted to make mention, yesterday, there was a live stream video from the governor and the Secretary of Education talking about some of the changes that they're going to be making with PSSAs, and specifically, they will be reducing the number of questions on the ELA and the math tests so that, in essence, it will lessen the number of days by 1 for each of those tests, and that will begin this coming spring. So the window as it was originally scheduled will remain the same for this year. However, the expectation is that ELA will go from 4 days to 3, and math will go from 3 days to 2. And then we have just a couple grades that take the science, and that will remain as it is with the 2 days. And then the following year, they'll be making some other adjustments and perhaps even pushing it back more. But they really want the focus to be on instruction. And again, saying, if we give the time and the support for the instruction, then the assessments and everything else takes care of itself. So we were very happy to hear that.
I think one of the great points that Dr. Katona shared with me was that they're looking at a way to move the testing back into the school year. I don't know if you want to talk about that, what advantage that might have.
Well, yes, if they, in terms of lessening the number of days, tightening up perhaps the window a bit, then they can push it. Right now, we're testing, this year it was in April, but, perhaps it could even go into May or, something along those lines, so that, again, there's more time to really teach the kids everything they need, and then just put the test at the end. And again, this is part of the state's objective to really take emphasis away so much from a single test and put it more into the instruction and look at some other areas for students as well.
Thank you, Dr. Katona. Other questions from members of the board?
I just wanted to make a comment that I know as being the chair of the Education Committee, we have talked extensively either in committee or outside of committee how important it is to take away all the testing or to reduce it. So this is just a wonderful thing, and I will reiterate to those of you on the board who may not be as aware of what goes into preparing for these tests. It's another reason why we chose Wonders, because it's a balanced literacy, not some of the new curriculum out there just focuses on test prep. And that's, so when you see more money needed, it's for books. It's not just for this test prep. So I commend the district for, we knew that hopefully this was coming, and hopefully we will de-emphasize this testing just as much as the state is starting to.
Thank you for your comments.
Just one question on a different topic. Do we know what the current enrollment is for kindergarten for next year? Do we have an updated number about where we're at? Thank you.
Probably different than my notes.
That's what I figured. It's been a little while since the education meeting.
Okay, so as it sits today, there are 66 students registered at Arrowhead, 63 at Eagleville, 76 at Woodland, and 65 at Worcester.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Dr. Katona? If not, we'll move on to policy. There's a first reading, there's no first reading, and there's a second reading, which is the Code of Conduct for student handbooks. I know that we had the policy meeting just before the voting meeting last month, and we made some adjustments to that, and just recently, so I know board members are probably still reviewing some of those changes, and there may be some wording suggestions, so if there are, please get them to me. I'd like to add them to this so that we can, have this approved at the August 29th meeting. Are there any questions about the Code of Conduct at this time?
Could you tell us what the changes are, the specific changes at this point, so that it makes sense to look at this?
Changes are those that are called track changes from Word that are posted on the website, or posted on the agenda manager. So I can tell you what they are in just a second. Okay.
Some of them are in red and some of them are in blue.
Yeah, because it was done by two different people.
Okay.
So the ones in blue I did, and the ones in red Donna did. As basically, we updated the equal opportunity statement. I think Mr. Ryan had mentioned that the statement wasn't consistent with the policy. And under student responsibilities, parent responsibilities, and staff responsibilities, and administrative responsibilities, I had taken the recommendations and tried to articulate them as we discussed at our last meeting. So they may be good, they may be close. I can definitely take any additional suggestions for this. But and then it goes on to the rights and responsibilities. Basically, under student rights, it was a question about whether or not we the suspensions that exceeded 3 school days and that we had the first 5 days of the suspension were consistent with policy, and I confirmed that, so that is consistent. And then we removed some of the items as we discussed under the examples in each of the 3 of the 4 levels. And those were the changes. So the ones in blue I made, and the ones in red Donna made, and we can take any other suggestions that you have. But this is the first time that well, since I've been here, that we've gotten this code of conduct in place, and it's something that is important for us to support and give guidance to our administration as they deal with some of the matters of student discipline from time to time. No? If there's no other questions, then we move on to others. There's gift and donations. Please accept a gift of office furniture from Mark Mandia, DMW Direct for Eagleville Elementary School, a value of $500. Accept a gift of $1,589.99 from Methacton Aquatic Club for the Methacton High School girls and boys swimming and diving teams. Accept a gift of $5,388.12 for the Methacton Aquatic Club for Methacton High School swim and diving teams. Trips. We have approved a trip for the Methacton High School varsity cheerleading team to attend the NCA camp in Bryn Mawr on August 17th through the 20th, no cost to the district. Under item C, there will be a transportation schedule provided to you in advance. This will not be posted because of safety reasons, but the full details of the schedule will be provided to the members of the board, and we will also work up a summary of that schedule, meaning, ride time, the normal parameters that we would look for in terms of efficiency and effectiveness for our families. Then on the agenda, there are dates for board meetings and old business, new business, and then courtesy of the floor.
I'll discuss this. I apologize, I did not notice the gifts of 2 and 3 on the, I sent an email about this, and there was no response, and there might be an issue with this, so I will talk to you about it privately, but I think there's been a change of board at that club, and so anyway, I don't have the details, and it's not for me to speak about, but there is, I believe, an issue with that gift.
Okay. Well, then I'd like to
Okay.
speak to you about that.
Sure.
Thanks.
I have a question as well. So I understand that the board is responsible to approve trips, particularly when it is at cost to the district. I'm not quite clear on what our responsibility is when there is no cost to the district. In particular, we'd be approving this trip retroactively. And I know we don't have our solicitor here to really speak to it, but I'm wondering what are the legal ramifications of that? We're going to be voting on this after the trip has already taken place.
Let me check with the solicitor and see if there's anything that puts us in a bind. I mean, we do approve other matters retroactively, but I think I understand what you're saying here. Okay. Let me check.
Anything else? Okay. We want to start giving updates to the public about the contract negotiations as they go on. So this is the first update, and there'll be more coming. Summer is typically a time to relax and rest, but Methacton School Board negotiating team has been hard at work. As the public might know, there are 3 contracts being negotiated. First, we have the Methacton Education Association, which is the union that represents the teachers. We also have the Methacton Education Support Professional Association, which the union represents the aides, the assistants, and the secretaries. And then we have the Teamsters, which is the union that represents our maintenance, grounds, and custodial. So right now we have 3 contract negotiations going on. Over the course of the summer, efforts to reach contract agreements have continued with all 3 unions. We've had 2 sessions with our support staff, with a 3rd scheduled for tomorrow, right? And the Teamsters are reviewing a comprehensive proposal of our team that our team submitted in July. Now, let me give you an update with the negotiations with the teachers union. So this summer, 4 negotiation sessions were held with the teachers union, one of which lasted anywhere from 10 to 13 hours for the people. We had quite an extensive meeting. This is clear demonstration of the commitment on both sides. This past Thursday night, we met again for another 3.5 hours, and I have to say the tone of the meeting was very positive and productive. So things continue to move forward. We will meet again on August 24th. You might wonder why this process is taking so long, but it's important to remember that constructing a new contract, we're working from an original document that has really morphed over decades. Contract language must be reviewed, analyzed, and sometimes debated as we strive to create a contract that reflects the issues of today. Aside from contract language, the parties have really focused on issues such as the structure of the salary schedule and the health care benefit options. Resolutions to complex matters don't happen overnight. As a school board, we are committed to ensuring that these contracts are responsible and balanced so as to meet the needs of our students, our teachers, and our taxpayers. The public may be also wondering what happens if the school year begins and a contract agreement has not been reached. While we value and respect our teachers and we believe they're committed to the students they educate, we have been informed by the leadership of the Methacton Education that their membership has authorized a work stoppage if needed as part of these contract negotiations. We are very hopeful that the action by the ME will not result in a work stoppage or other changes that could compromise the education of our students. Lastly, in order to keep the public in the loop, we do intend to share updates on negotiations moving forward. As I said earlier, our next session is August 15th with our support professionals and August 24th with our teachers. And we will be posting updates on the district website to keep the community apprised of our progress. Okay? Thanks. Now we'll move on to public comment. Does anybody have anything for the public comment?
Good evening. John Andrews, Lower Providence. Relative to your last presentation there, Mr. Boardman, could I get a feel for how many directors are involved in the negotiations?
We have quite a few. It's not just one or two.
Thank you. Sorry, Mr. Bricker isn't here, but I saw on the list of bills for this month a water bill from the Audubon Water Company for the for Arrowhead. I'm sorry, for Audubon School for the month from June 13th to July 13th, $3,411. I thought we closed the building and it's summer, so I don't know, do we have a new swimming pool there? But digging in a little deeper, when school was in session, the bill that was on the list for last month, July, the bill from May 15th to June 13th was just a little bit more at $36.68. Now, so these are bills from the Audubon Water Company. Now, over a year ago, for the period from May 17th to June 14th, there was a bill for $2,136 for Arrowhead and Woodland. So, you know, possibly there's a coding issue where some months what goes on the list of bills is one school, another bill it's two schools or whatever, and you know, if they're all served by Audubon Water Company, the bill is confusing in that you know, maybe it's for 3 schools or 4 schools, but what shows up in the list of bills seems to be random and confusing. My next question is regarding the voting meeting for this month. I'd kind of like to hear the process for the date change. You know, the meeting schedule for the year gets voted on in public by the whole board or the people attending that meeting. You know, it's bothersome if the meetings was rescheduled because, let's say, you couldn't get a quorum on a schedule that people had voted on at the beginning of the year. So, you know, or maybe you're delaying it a week on the chance that the board can vote for one or more of the contracts on
John, the meeting was delayed because the vice president of the board had a scheduled vacation, and the president of the board was told by his CEO that he had to be out of town that day.
Okay, thank you.
Joe Bickelman, Audubon. I just had a question from the August 9th Finance Committee meeting. There was I asked a question at that meeting regarding the wire transfer to TD Bank for the district charge card, and I wonder if Dr. Zerbe found out the detailed expenditure of that. It was about $5,000 some odd dollars. I asked that on August 9th, and you said you would look into it. What's the detailed expenditure for that? $5,000. And why is it a wire transfer and not a check?
I didn't say I would look into it.
Well, nobody knew the answer on August 9th. You found out what the reason was for the 0 checks. I thought you were going to find out the detailed expenditures for the wire transfer to TD Bank for the district's charge card. I asked the question August 9th. So if I do an open records request, I'll get the detail, right? The detail. I won't get just something that says dinner at such and such place. I'll get what was purchased, right? That receipt.
Yeah.
Okay. So you don't know what that was for, but it's gone through. The payment, the taxpayer's money has gone through to pay the charge card, and you don't know what it's for. And I asked the question August 9th.
It was for materials that we needed to purchase.
What were the materials, the detail of it?
I don't have the detail in front of me. You asked a question at the meeting. You assumed that I was going to get the information for you. There was no conversation as such.
Normal business administrators would find out the answer.
I know, but if you haven't noticed, our business administrator is not here this evening, and he would probably have that answer for us. So if you'd like, maybe it'd be best if you'd send me the email reminding me that...
Well, I'll just do an open records request. That seems to be the way to go.
Either way, I can...
As long as I get the detail of it, not a mass, charge for something.
An open record request you'd be specific on the request, and then we will get you the information, right?
Okay.
We'd be required to give that to you.
Who holds the charge card?
The business
responsible
office.
for the card?
For that one, the business office.
The business office holds it
Yes.
and doles it out to...
When principals need it for certain purchase of materials, or when the business office needs to purchase items that aren't purchasable through a purchase order process through a vendor, they use that card.
So a purchase order isn't approved prior to the item being purchased by the business manager? All the purchase orders...
The items are approved in advance of the card use.
So why don't they just do a purchase order and cut a check and carry the check to wherever they're going? I'll ask for the detail. Thanks.
Anybody else? All right, thank you. Motion to adjourn the meeting. Second, all those in favor? Everybody, thank you for coming out tonight. Appreciate it.